I'm Kay Bess, and this is the Beehive. Women in voiceover, the voices of the fairer sex that keep the wheels of commerce and creativity moving in this country. Voices you hear every day, but names you likely don't know until now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Beehive. My guest today is Salli Saffioti. You would know her from playing Petra in Horizon Zero Dawn. She is best known for playing Ingrid Hunnigan in the Resident Evil series, and also for playing Mistral in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. She plays Cleo and Claudine on the YouTube series Monster High, and she's also finally able to reveal that she is in the latest direct-to-DVD Scooby-Doo movie. Sort of a childhood dream come true, coming out in 2018, though we cannot talk about any details. She has also wound her way back to on-camera work after a 6 or 7 year hiatus, raising her son, with a guest star role on Major Crimes. Welcome to the Beehive, Salli.
Thank you, Kay. I'm happy to be here.
Nice to have you. I usually start by asking people how they got into voiceover. Mm-hmm. So let her rip. You clearly have had an on-camera career.
Yes.
So
I got into it, I think, because of my on-camera career. I was on a show that was on HBO on camera called Tracy Takes On. Mm-hmm. And I was her double. So if one of her characters had a scene with another one of her characters, she would play one of the characters and I would play the other character in the voice, in the get-up and everything like that. Tracy Ullman. Yeah.
Love her.
It was a great experience for me, and it was great practice of all the characters that, live inside of you. And, cut to the series ends, and I was randomly at a Hollywood wrap party for a movie a friend had written, and a guy came up to me and said he was a huge fan of my work on the show and could I do the characters for him? And I was like, yeah, I'm from New York and we don't really bark on command. I was like, but, then like cut to a glass of wine later and he's doing all these great characters. And then I was like, all right, I'll do Chick the Cab Driver. I'll do Linda Granger. I'll do Ruby Romaine. And he's like on the floor and he says, who is the millionaire that represents you for voiceover? And I was like, no, I'm not a singer. I didn't even know what it was.
What's voiceover?
Yes. And anyway, he got me my first agent with no demo tape, no experience. And it was very much like, yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Kind of like, I'm doing this because this guy recommended you. And, I started booking some work, but it wasn't really the right starting place for me. It was they were just very Hollywoody and I'm not that Hollywoody. So I switched agents and then, it just went from there. And I started with just doing commercial stuff. And then I was begging to do animation. And so they didn't really give me a lot of animation, but they started giving me video games because I do lots of accents. Then I started booking the video games and I was like, I want to do promos. And slowly but surely after years and years and years, getting a shot at it, I was able to do all of it. And then, switched agents a few years ago. And now I feel like I have, at least an opportunity at all of
those areas.
Definitely.
That's fantastic.
So one person changed the course of my life, honestly.
That's fantastic. Do you remember that person's name?
Yes, his name is Don Reed.
Don Reed.
Yes. And I actually ran into him many years later at a furniture store and I accosted him across the furniture store, like tears streaming down my face. I was like, Don Reed, you changed the course of my life. And he was just like, oh my God, Salli, hi. Gave me a big hug. He's like, but just let me tell you, I did nothing. I made an introduction. And if you didn't have the goods, you wouldn't still be here. He's like, so thank you. But he's like, it's really you. It's still you. And I thought, wow, he's so gracious, you know?
That is so gracious. But, It's true what he says. And it's true also your gratitude because, you know, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to say, let me make an introduction. And sometimes that's just what an actor needs.
Absolutely.
Is an introduction.
Absolutely. So that's how I got in. I feel so fortunate that it worked out like that for me.
So you're from New York.
I am.
Is that right? And so how long have you been out in Los Angeles?
Oh my gosh, 20 years, I think. Yeah, it's a long time.
So did any of this voiceover-y kind of stuff happen in New York, or was this all in LA?
No, it was all in LA.
And the Tracy Ullman
was all in LA.
Was all in LA.
Yeah, I had only ever done theater and independent movies in New York. Okay. I had a theater company. I did tons of plays, tons of independent movies, shorts, features, you know. And then I came out here and I was still like this acting purist, and I was like, I'm just doing theater. Like, I just want to do theater. Independent movies for no money, you know. Yes. That's what I do.
Starving artist. I'm not just an artist.
Right. And then it was like I had my first audition for a TV show, and it was a little part, and I lucked out and I got the part, and it went so great, and they recurred me on the show a little bit, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm just going to hang out for a year and just see what happens. And now it's like,
and here you are,
20 years later.
So what brought you here? I mean, was there a specific thing that brought you, or you were just like, I'm heading west?
Well, it's kind of cheesy.
There's gold in them hills.
No. My best friend was in a band that had gotten signed by Warner Brothers Records. I was at their going away party in New York City, and they're like, Salli, come to LA with the band. And because everyone thought, why aren't you making money at this? And I was like, oh, because I'm an artist, you know, I like having 14-day jobs, you know, That's what I do. And I left that night. I was like, guys, I'm far too practical to go to LA with the band. Yes, I'm an artist, but I'm also like, you know, I'm a grounded person. And then a few months later, I was like, I'm going to go to LA with the band for 1 year. I'm going to check it out for 1 year. And I came, and here we are.
Here we are. That's
in the Beehive.
That's fantastic. Do you have a home studio?
I do have a home studio.
What's your home studio like? Where is it? Is it in a closet?
It is the closet underneath my stairs. It was I actually
love
I live in a townhouse, and I bought this townhouse because of this closet. When I had looked at places 10 years ago, I guess I bought the place. It was like, I was like, oh, can I open this closet? You know, when I'm looking at the place, and they're like, oh, no, you know, it's really messy in there, whatever. I said, oh, I don't really care about that. And I was like, do you mind if I take out the items inside of it? And they were like, oh, no. I said, I'll put it all back. I'm like a handyman. Don't worry about it. And I start taking out all this stuff, and it's like, it got this perfect angle, which, you know, is dynamite.
Good for sound,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Great for sound. And it's kind of small, and I'm
great
kind
for
of
sound.
Small.
Yeah.
Right. And I walked in there, and everyone is looking at me like, this woman has lost her mind. And I was like, I knew I was going to buy this place, and I was going to be able to convert that thing into the actual studio, because it would have better sound quality than anything I could have, I think, purchased or manufactured or tried to put in the basement or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And it's nothing but the studio.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, love that.
Me too.
What kind of microphone do you have?
I use a Neumann TLM 103.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what kind of software?
I use a Scarlett. Do you know those?
No.
It's like it's the preamp, I guess.
Okay.
It is. I used to use an M-Box, and I switched it to that. It's a bit of an upgrade. And
somebody else was mentioning that. You
I
mentioned
love
the
it.
word Scarlett.
Yeah,
it's
called
know what
Scarlett
that is.
IS something. I don't know, but it's really good, and I like it better than the M-Box. And then I edit in GarageBand, actually.
Okay.
So
that's your software,
so simple. Yeah. For me.
Yeah, that's great. I actually find GarageBand to be too complicated for me.
Really?
I use Twisted Wave.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. I've never tried it.
Twisted Wave is great.
I started with Pro Tools, and I
do too.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is bigger than me.
It's bigger than the world. It's huge. I think I've said this before, but it's for a voice actor, Pro Tools is like it's like flying a 747 to the grocery store. I mean, there's just it's ridiculous.
And then the littlest thing goes wrong, and it's like, you're like, you're like, oh my God, what is that? Where's that coming from?
It's so huge. It's so huge, the program. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So Twisted Wave is about as simple as it can get. It's so much simpler than even GarageBand.
Oh my gosh.
Truly.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's super simple. It was designed, from what I know. Do you know Bo Weaver? You know Bo Weaver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bo Weaver worked with the guys developing Twisted Wave to say, here's what would make it great for voice actors. So Bo was kind of, instrumental in helping them develop this software that would be really easy for artists like voice actors who don't know anything about
I totally am going to get it because, I love my GarageBand, but it's like it's just because I'm used to it.
Sure,
I'd
yes.
love
we
to
all
check
got
something
used to
else
Pro
out.
Tools, but we shouldn't have.
Yes, exactly.
And then you just get something like this and you feel so liberated. Oh, it's just crazy.
I want to feel like that.
So tell me, what's the best voiceover job you've ever had?
Oh my goodness.
And there are lots of things that qualify as best.
Yes. That's up
to you.
There were like the long-standing 9-year gigs, which I would have to say are definitely the best.
Which one is that? Have you had a 9-year job?
I did have a 9-year job. I did, past tense, did. I was the voice of the whole entire West Coast McDonald's stuff for 9 years.
Wow. That's a great gig.
It was really great. It was,
You did radio and TV and
yeah,
that's awesome.
And it was just like all local market stuff, but it was great. And they become family.
Yes,
the people when you're working with them every week, like they saw me through my whole life, and I felt like, and I saw them through marriages, divorces, births, deaths, whatever, change of the guard, whatever. It was a really good gig. And then I had Proactive for 6 years when it used to just be like one girl and one guy.
Yeah.
And I'm still friendly with all of them. And whenever I go to San Francisco, like I'll bring my son and we'll go have lunch. They have a private chef that cooks them lunch. So we'll have lunch with them up there. Yeah. So those were good as far as longevity.
Sure.
But
they keep the rent paid consistently, right?
Yes. One of my all-time favorite video game jobs was this game called The Lost Odyssey. Chris Borders was the director. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever worked on in my entire life to this day. And it was one of those games that I think we recorded for like a year and a half. I mean, it was like epic. They would show you these like visuals that were like works of art. Yeah. And they might have the music laced in the background for you to see this before you're delivering your lines. And you would just be like, I'd be almost
so helpful.
Almost in tears as I'm like having this unbelievable like romantic scene with this, and it's a complicated relationship because she's a queen and he's like a pauper, and how do they navigate, and and it's like, and it's listed on a bunch of lists as like one of the greatest whatever romantic scenes. That character's name was Ming Numara, but everybody that worked on that was incredible. And just to work that long on a video game all the time, and it was so beautiful, and it was so like artistically rewarding on every level, know. And she had a whole life, like several novels worth of a life, right?
Wow.
It was
you
great.
You have quite a resume of video games. I mean, I'm just checking out your IMDb page, and it's like, wow, you've done a lot. You've done a lot of games.
A lot of games. The games are fun.
They are. I just, I kind of just have started myself in the last 3 years or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a beginner, but I love them.
Mm-hmm. So do I.
I find
because you're an actor,
right?
Too. Yeah, and it's like it appeals to like a different place of the craft, right?
That really has very little to do with being a voice. I mean, it's so much more than that.
It's so much more than that, right?
Yeah, so they are very rewarding, and there's a whole rhythm to it too, in the sense of you work on these games for so long, and they don't come out,
right,
for maybe a few years,
right, and
then there's this whole build. I mean, it's just crazy, but I love it. It's very much like what I imagine it is to work on a movie, that you work on it forever, and then there's all these other creatives who are participating in making this game. I mean, the major people who are writing the story, and who are the artists, who are creating the visuals and just all kinds of stuff. So it's such a collaborative effort, and they do their thing and they work you in, and wow, then there's this whole thing that's been created, and it just, I like it. I like the collaborative nature of it.
Oh, so do I completely. I love it. And I love because, although on camera, I've gotten to play some characters that are very different from who I am, but most of them are still pretty much within like this little
it
range.
Matters what we look like,
right? And then in the video games, it's like I can be from whatever country. And and speaking back to that question, you said, what were some of your greatest parts? Other ones, like in Prince of Persia, I got to, she was Persian, the character I played, and she spoke in Farsi. And it wasn't until the very last session, I see this guy through the glass and I'm like, oh, he's Persian and I'm not Persian. And I'm thinking, oh boy, like he's going to come in from my, my accent and then he says, are you Persian? And I said, oh, I'm not. I'm so sorry. And he said, your accent is beautiful. And he was like a translator there to teach me how to speak Farsi and deliver a multitude of lines in Farsi and then like a monologue. And
how awesome.
That I loved. And I did that another time in Spider-Man Web of Shadows, I think it was. She was Russian, and at the last session, she had like a monologue in Russian, and they had somebody there to help with that as well. So I've done things like that a few times, and that to me is like one of the most exciting and creatively fulfilling and so challenging. Yes. And I love that challenge, did I get it? Did I get the nuance? Oh, it's like, oh no, you're placing it like in the upper part of your throat and I need you to place it in the lower part of your throat. And I'm, oh my gosh, this is like so great. Yeah, it's like a course on wheels,
And, it kind of makes you realize not everybody can do that, and so there's great satisfaction in it.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, well, you guys should check out her IMDb page and and I'm sure you'll find games that you're like, wow, I didn't know she was in that. So, it's pretty impressive. So tell me about one of the worst jobs you've ever had, like where you think this is just, wow.
Yes, right away I have a visual on that one. It was a video game also. And I did a couple of sessions on it, and then I guess I was let go, but I was the second person brought in. I was like the savior of the situation. And it was one of those situations where you go in and everyone seems really nice and they've got your dialogue, in leveled out. Like this is level 1 and that's conversational. Through level 5 or whatever. It wasn't 5 is like, screaming over grenades and helicopters and machinery, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, oh, there goes my voice. No little girl voices for me tonight,
Yeah.
But then we start going and really their level 1 was what I would call a level 4. So conversational for them meant something very different than it did to the majority of people I've worked with before.
Yeah.
So when level 1 was like that, by the time we got to level 5, I mean, it was like literally my vocal cords felt like someone had just like put them through a cheese grater. And I left and I was like, all right, everyone. I was like, thanks so much. And I got in the car and I was just like, holy cow. I wonder how long this is it for me. And I was shocked that they had me back. He was like, oh, very good. You're like one of the only people that could get through this. And I'm thinking like,
that's a problem.
Is that a badge of honor? Or is that like, and I, talked to my agents about it and they brought me back. So I was like, oh, I got to really prepare myself for this
Perhaps
time.
Perhaps a session on a Friday.
Right. And then similar situation the second time. And then I found out after that, they were like, oh, we're going to have you back. And he had me read for all these other characters. And then I ended up not in that video game, and it was a very big title release.
You weren't even in it. No,
they ended up replacing me, is what I heard, but I don't really know because I didn't follow the game. But I happened to be at E3 that year, and they had like the hugest booth ever with all the characters and everything. And I thought, oh, wow,
I'm not there.
And I like lost out on however many jobs because I was talking like this, for a couple of weeks. So
wow.
So that was my worst. And
we've all been replaced.
Yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
I've been replaced other times too, but that one was just
it's just a little brutal. It's like we're gonna beat you up and then let you go.
Mm-hmm. And tell you that you're the best at it. Yes.
And then we're gonna and then we're going to say bye-bye.
I think they said ultimately my voice sounded too similar to some of the other women. I'm thinking like we all probably sounded the same after screaming for 4 hours,
Everybody sounds like Brenda Vaccaro
yes,
after the,
right. There you go.
After a few of those sessions. Yeah, it's funny because I've hardly screamed in video games. I mean, I do some work on Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've died, you know, I've had deaths and small death, medium death, large death. Even then, and they're so great. My sessions have always been like 30 minutes. I mean, just
that's so nice.
Oh, it's great. So even though I'm yelling, I'm really not yelling for that long, screaming, dying, all that stuff. But I've noticed that my voice, even with what little screaming I've done, my voice is different. It's different now,
definitely.
A year later, you know, than it was last year.
Definitely.
You know? So
yeah, and when you're like banging out a couple of 4-hour sessions a week like that, it's challenging.
It's gnarly.
Yeah.
If you had to name one person who gave you a leg up, who would that be?
That guy, Don Reed.
Don Reed. I was gonna say. I think you've already answered this question.
Yeah, Don Reed was the one. If I was going to name a second person, it was Trish Esposito.
Yeah.
She worked at Cunningham when I was with Cunningham, and
is she not there anymore?
No, she then worked for Jason Marks.
That's right.
Talent management,
That's right.
and now she's a partner at
DPN.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay, because I do know her.
Yeah,
and I think we're Facebook friends.
Yeah.
And so I sort of
or Trish Ryan now. I think that's her.
So I followed the path for a while, but I'm like, wait, where did she? So yeah,
she was one of those people where when I was doing promos, I was just getting like a tiny little bit of it, and she's like, wait a minute, you do everything. And she was someone who gave me great advice because I was like, do you think I should focus on one thing? She said, well, you might make more money up front if you just focus on one thing and you become the go-to person for that one thing. She said, but ultimately for longevity, it's better to be really diverse. And I thought, well, that's way more fulfilling for me.
Sure.
So she kind of made it happen for me in a really big way. And she took this little tiny promo career and made it a much bigger promo career. And then when she left and went to Jason Marks, I was like in that first handful of women that they signed.
Yeah.
So she made a huge difference in my career, in my life, and she's an all-around great person.
That's
too.
great.
Yeah,
fantastic. It's really such a small world, you know. And if you're around long enough, you kind of get to know everybody, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about it. You know, you love to cook. We sort of have this ongoing thing on Facebook of like, how's Blue Apron?
Yes. One day we're going to have like a voiceover and dinner cooking voiceover thing. Like, did you ever see that show, Daryl's House?
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll do that for voiceover.
Yeah, for voiceover.
I love it.
And then we'll cook.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. Do you use that service?
Blue Apron?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I love it. I like it because, you know, I'm a single mom with my son and I like to gourmet cook, but it's just the two of us. And he's not necessarily into gourmet cooking, but with Blue Apron, sometimes I get him involved a little bit.
Yeah.
He won't get fully involved, but he'll partially get involved.
Yeah.
And then we have like a 3-bite agreement. So he'll have 3 bites of whatever it is. And even if he's like, this is the worst thing ever, you know, it's like he
tried it.
Yeah. And I think ultimately maybe it'll expand his palate down the road.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
I hope he has a love of cooking like I do, because for me, it's like, I would say that's my therapy.
Yeah. So, which brings me to, you're a mom.
Yes.
Single mom.
Yep.
So how's that been as a person who's an artist creating her own business as an actor and being a single mom, put those things together?
Right. Well, I don't
complicated
think, you know,
at
least I never anticipated I would be a single mom. And I became a single mom when my son was 15 months old. And it was like, you know, there's no manual, right? There's no manual for children, period. Okay.
Yeah.
No manual, certainly when you're a single parent and the provider for your child solely. So it was certainly, there was that moment where it was like, oh, I have to reevaluate everything. You know, my son is my priority.
Yes.
But to provide for my son, I also have to do, you know, work. And I already had an established career. And I will say that it might have been really clunky at first, but ultimately, voiceover is the absolute best job you could ever have as a single mom, because you're doing most of it at home. And, you know, so if when he was a baby, I could hold him and he could just, you know, put his head on my shoulder. And he got very quickly that you needed to be quiet when we were in the studio. Yeah. And then when he got a little bit older and he could just sit outside the studio, like, and he would just, I could hear him very subtly, like outside the door, and I'd pop my head out, and it worked out great. And now he's older. So now he just like kind of plays on his own. And if it's something interesting, I'll hear his tiny little footsteps coming like outside the door. And sometimes I'll surprise him and I'll open up the door because I don't have a window on mine.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, what is that character you're recording? She sounds evil, And I'm like, oh, yes. I'm like, I don't have all the details, but I can tell you she's not a nice lady, and I'm totally pretending right now, So it's been, it's obviously a challenge, but it's been the greatest gift ever to, let go of the on-camera stuff for a while, have the voiceovers to be able to support us.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, kudos to my agents, because they
at Atlas Talent.
Yes, they understand that my child comes first, and they're so good about trying to schedule things during school hours, checking with me first to give me a minute to see if I can find somebody to help out with him, like, and, have other moms take him home with them or whatever, if work has to be right at around that time of pickup or something like that. So it's been incredibly great. And even in the cases when I've had to bring him to work.
I was going to ask you if you ever had that experience.
Oh my gosh, so many times. And I will tell you, like, many of the studios in town know him. And when I show up without him, 95% of the time, people are like, where's Max? And I'm like, he's at school now. Like, he's older, like he's 8 now. But many of them have known him since he was a baby. So it's really cool and really special. The other day I worked at Bell Sound, and randomly 3 days prior he had said, do you ever work at Bell Sound anymore? And I said, I haven't been there in a long, long time. So no, I don't work there regularly anymore. He's like, oh, bummer. That's one of my favorite studios. 2 days ago, on the same day, can you come at 4:00? And I was like, well, I can, but I'm going to have to bring Max.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're good with that. And I was like, okay, great. And so I picked him up. I said, guess where we're going today? And he said, I had no idea where. We're going to Bell Sound. Are you kidding me? Because, oh my gosh, do you think they're going to have those great snacks? I was like, they always have those great snacks. And he got there, and it was like, he was kind of like, go do your thing. And they were all like fawning all over him as if he was George Clooney, giving him like ice cream bars and, whatever snacks they had there. And he's like, drinking his lemon fizzy water and, having a bag of chips. And so it's great. And, and he's done a little bit of voiceover too.
Yeah.
Not much, but a little bit. And it was nice because it was places that had already met him, where he's worked as well too.
So he's comfy. And
he was like, today we're here for me. So it's been a great ride, and I couldn't have invented it in a better way.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't anticipate to end up in voiceover. I was really just theater and film and a little bit of TV, and then the TV thing really started taking off, and then setting that aside and having the voiceover really be the foundation of all of it.
Right.
And it's just a perfect fit is all I can say. And
That's
it's
great.
Highly supportive of the single mom situation,
Yeah.
And my son loves it too. And he's like, he's so proud of me, which is so special. Like he runs up to me, my mom is in it. He'll see someone with a shirt on with one of my characters on it, and he'll just run up to them and say, my mom is the voice of that. Mom, come on, come meet them.
That's so
very
great.
cute.
I've talked to, a lot of guests in here about and it involves my fascination with the struggle that each of us has, regardless of whether you're an actor or not, just a human struggle of sort of facing difficult moments, difficult decisions, obstacles, things that get in our way in pursuit of the life that we want to have. And I'm just curious if you look back and on your life and can say, oh, that was a really, really difficult time. I had to make a decision about something, but it set me off on this other trajectory toward success that you didn't anticipate, right?
Mm-hmm,
Does that make sense? Posing that question
for sure. I would say, there's been a few of those moments in my life. Some of them were in New York because, like, I just always wanted to act. That's all I ever remember. I think it's like kind of what kept me on the straight and narrow. Growing up, I had a really rocky childhood. And somehow I had this vision and this dream that kept me going forward, despite like being a busgirl and working in the kitchen and stuffing newspapers at the deli and like being a fryer person and the person who makes the tuna or whatever, wherever. Like I had this goal, but it was like, it looked like my dad used to have an expression. People like us don't go to college. People like us don't live in New York City. People like us don't, become successful at things like that. People like us don't go to college, whatever, people like us. And one day I kind of woke up and I was like, all right, for Christmas, I'm going to share with him that I have this passion and this is what I have to do with my life. And I want nothing for Christmas but his acceptance and approval. And so I remember I was so nervous and I like having this conversation.
How old were you?
Oh my gosh, I was a teenager. 17, 18 tops.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was like that, do you know that shaking all over feeling? And you're like, oh my God, this is like everything is riding on this moment because my dad raised me alone. So for me, it was like his approval meant everything. And I sat down and I had this big conversation with him and I was not a big crier, but there were tears streaming down my face. And I was like, and I just want you to say that it's okay. That you'll love me, and he was like, I can't do that. He's like, people like us don't do that. And I just thought, oh my God, like this one solid relationship that I've had in my life is broken forever. And so I had gotten a scholarship to college through his union. He was a bus driver, the Transit Workers Union. And he was like, you can use it for anything except the acting. So I ended up going to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, because my best friend was going to Parsons School of Design. And I was like, just get me into the city. I was already in the city all the time anyway. Just get me into the city. I'll get this degree, use that scholarship. And I'm going to figure it out. So there I am, like studying fashion, someone who really didn't, I was like artsy. So I tried to just get into the artsy part of it. And then I started secretly taking acting classes, like working 3 jobs, taking 21 credits, paying for my own apartment,
Wow.
School was covered from the scholarship. And then just like thinking that, again, like thwarted from getting to do what I wanted to do. And then just slowly but surely through that constant chipping away at this, and always being like, I have no idea how someone like me gets to make that happen. I don't know what that looks like. We don't have connections. We don't have money. We don't have and no one I know is doing this with their life. Nobody from my high school knew that it was my passion because it was like this like deep-seated kind of secret that kept me going. And then I remember I got into my first play reading and it was like in the theater district. And a friend of mine was going out with John Cryer. And I was friendly with him. And it was during that whole Pretty in Pink time, whatever that was. And he and Tracy came to the show and he brought me like 24 roses. And they took me out to Joe Allen afterwards. So I had this real New York theater experience.
That's great.
And I remember sitting there and I said to him, how does someone like me separate? Like, how does someone like me get to make that happen? And he said to me, you should do something that no one else is doing. Like, he said, I did it. He said, I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London and I studied acting because I knew nobody else was going to have that on their resume. And I'm thinking like, yeah, people like me don't get to do that. But then we have no money in our family. My great grandmother died and I ended up getting $5,000. And the price of the summer course was $4,800 and something dollars. And I was like, if I get in, I'm going there. That's what I'm going to do. And then
to the Royal Academy?
And I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. In London for the summer course. And then they were like, you can have a scholarship and come here. And I was like, no, I'm not a classical actress. Like, it was a great experience for me, but I don't want to be doing Shakespearean Greek tragedies and whatnot. I knew that wasn't my thing. It was so good for someone like me to get to go do that. But then I went back and it did kind of just, it was to have that credit, just kind of, it did just change how people looked at you. Like, it was like, oh, and so I would say, that's a long answer to your question, but like the FIT thing, like, and thinking like, oh, now it's thwarted again. Like and then, that first play reading and that conversation that then got, it just all worked out. And then, and then I came out here and I thought, well, I just want to do theater. And so I just started doing theater, and that was great. And I was like, you need to make money, you need to get on TV. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I got my friend a job as an assistant at an agency, and she secretly submitted me. And then I got my first job. It was the first one I went out on, and I booked it. So that was like, and then I was like, suddenly I was like getting into TV.
All feels like stuff that was meant to
be. Yeah. And then the divorce was like a big thwart for me. I thought, oh, this is the end of it all now. I'm going to have to go get an office job. And
to be able to support your child.
Absolutely. And
you would.
Yes. And I will say that a friend not in the business kind of said something that wasn't very kind, but I mean, speaking, I'm sure from a great place, she just said, I think it's really irresponsible that you're doing this creative endeavor where you never know if you're going to make no money that month, or you're going to make $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever you're going to make that month. You need to go get a job that provides health insurance and whatever, and put that aside. And it felt like my dad, you know what I mean? And I just thought, but then that piece of you goes, oh, is that the right thing to do? So there was that moment of like, I started going online, and should I go to nursing school? Like, I'm a really kind, nurturing person. Like, I don't know, what can I learn online? Like, maybe I should go back to bookkeeping and accounting. Like, I'm very good with numbers. I should go do that. And then, it always just works out. Yeah. And even without like all this, I don't have an ongoing gigs right now at this point in my career. It's kind of like, the ebb and flow of it.
Sure.
And it looks a little different right now. But, then I tried to diversify. So in a little bit of a lull time, and then I wrote a screenplay with a friend. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think that's what we do.
Yeah.
We figure out what to do in the lull.
Right.
And they're guaranteed. The lulls are guaranteed.
Of course.
But that's exactly, wow, I'm really impressed by your tenacity. I think it's, the story of your father is on a very deep level is devastating. It's just
absolutely,
and to the one person, right, that you love, and they love you,
and he was everything. Like he like swooped in when I was 10 and like took over, and like there was a roof over my head, and there was food on the table, and serious chores to be done. And it was very strict over there. But at the same time, he showed up for everything. Like he was like my rock.
So complex.
It's so complex,
and his saying, you have the scholarship, but you can't. It's all based in his desire to protect you.
Of course. He wanted me to succeed the way he saw success.
Yes, right. Yeah. And yet,
my dad's an Italian immigrant. I don't even know if he finished high school. It was a different set of glasses to see through.
I think it's terrifying for many parents to consider that their children are artists.
Oh yes,
I do, and I don't. It isn't. I don't think it's intended as judgment. I think it's born out of sheer desire to protect.
Right. Even recently he'll still say to me, "So you still doing that acting thing?" Like it's like I've been doing this my whole life. I'm like, "Yep, I'm still doing it." It's hard to believe, but I am. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's. When you look back, when you have a career that's over 20 years long, you kind of go, this is what I do.
Right.
And I have survived it, and I want to keep doing it. And
yes.
I think that's a really big deal that you didn't let that stop you.
Yes.
I think we so often let those things stop us, and it's just very impressive that you didn't, even though you went to college doing something you didn't want to do, and
right.
But man, it's just.
I did have many day jobs in the fashion industry, though, thanks to going to FIT and graduating with honors at Radio City Music Hall.
I think you can use anything that you do.
Yes.
It's all. I think if we know that now,
mm-hmm.
right, as adult women, but. When you're in your 20s, it's like, what good is this doing me? But the truth is, you're living life, and living life is probably the best training for being an actor.
Yes.
Having as many different experiences as you can. We have a game here at the end of each podcast called the Beehive Roulette.
Ooh.
Not the Beehive Roulette. It's just called Beehive Roulette. That's like... I'm going to the Trader Joe.
The Trader Joe.
The Trader Joe, yeah. Yeah, Beehive Roulette.
All right.
So,
I'm in.
you're in. And so I have a list of about 50 questions, and you're going to answer 10 of them now that you've agreed and you're in. And but you're going to pick the numbers, and then I'm going to read the corresponding question to you.
Okay.
So, and some of these are, some are ridiculous questions, and others are like, get the hanky, get the tissue.
Sure. Is that why this box of tissues
I
is
just
right
thought
here?
voice actors were always like blowing our noses. And, It's not true. I don't think I've ever blown my nose voiceover session. But anyway, so.
Number 5.
Let the roulette begin.
Yes.
Number 5. What's your favorite lunch meat?
My favorite lunch meat is roast beef rare.
Nice. All right, next.
11.
Would you bungee jump?
Never.
Never in a million years. Okay, next.
15.
Do you untie your shoes when you take them off?
Rarely.
Next.
17.
Do you think you're strong?
I think I am incredibly strong.
Great.
27.
What song would you like played at your funeral?
Oh my God.
I know, right?
Woo. Oh,
That's
goodness gracious. The Rising by Bruce Springsteen.
excellent. Okay, next. Yeah, 5 more.
Oh, 5 more. Let's see. And we go up to 50, right? Let's see.
There are 50, yeah.
33.
What's your favorite food?
Lobster.
Boom. No hesitation there.
Anyone that knows me knows. Okay, now you know.
Any particular way you like it?
I really like it traditionally, like, steamed in a lobster pot,
Yeah.
a little drawn butter
Drawn
and
butter.
lemon. Mm-hmm. All right, 39.
Summer, winter, spring, or fall?
Fall. 42.
What's your favorite cocktail? Getting all these good food things.
Oh, I know, for the foodie.
Yeah.
I kind of like when there's like a muddled
Mm-hmm.
strawberry or
Mm-hmm.
raspberry or something like that with vodka and spicy jalapeno and whatever else they put in it.
Yummy.
I don't know. I'm like a crafty cocktail
A crafty
person.
cocktail person.
I don't have
right.
I'm not like, I like a martini. It's not
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's,
But vodka would be the booze.
vodka
in it?
is the booze in
Okay.
it. I mean, I like others. Vodka
But
is
vodka's
the
thing.
safest.
All right. Next. You have 2 more.
Okay. 48.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Oceanside, New York, which is on Long Island, just outside the city, June 11th.
In New York.
Baldwin.
Fantastic. All right, 1 more.
50.
Name something that most people don't know about you that you can say out loud.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I mean, it's not that exciting, but maybe it's exciting. I have a tattoo. I have a little tattoo inside my bikini line.
Well, that would be something people wouldn't know
No
about
one
you.
knows.
Who would know? No,
Yeah.
now all the Beehive listeners know.
Goodness. Yep.
What's the tattoo?
It's something I drew. I've always had this kind of, that's a bigger story, but I'm not religious, but I feel very spiritually connected.
Uh-huh.
So I drew this like equal-sided cross. So it's almost like a plus sign with a heart in the middle.
Oh,
So that's what it
lovely.
is. It's
Oh,
like
that's
faith
lovely.
and love and
yeah.
stuff like that for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so I have one last question for you.
Okay.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You deserve all of this and more.
Lovely. Salli Saffioti.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, for real, tell everyone where they can find you.
Oh, yes. I'm on Twitter at Mama Saf, MAMASAFF. And I have a Facebook fan page, Salli Saffioti Actress. I have a website, which is about to be under construction, but it's saffioti.com, www.saffioti.com.
Fantastic. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows how to spell your name. It's Salli.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Sally
Sally.
with an I.
And then Saffioti.
IOTI.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Ciao. Thanks for joining me today in the Beehive. For podcast notes, pictures, and more information on my guests, visit the podcast website, thebeehivepodcast.com. Find me at my website, kbess.com. Follow me on Twitter at kbess, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. If you've a mind to, please post a review of the podcast on iTunes. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and good for the bones. Come back for more Women in Voiceover next time in the Beehive.